He only wanted to see his mother, a young boy, ticket in hand, standing in line like everyone else. But when the flight attendant looked at him, her smile vanished. In front of dozens of passengers, she tore his ticket apart, her voice cold, her eyes filled with judgment. She thought she knew who he was, but she had no idea whose son she had just humiliated. What happened next would turn an ordinary flight into a lesson the world would never forget. It was supposed to be the happiest day of his summer. 12-year-old Marcus clutched his boarding pass with pride, his first time flying alone. His mother had saved for months to make this trip happen, sending him to visit his father, the man who built one of the nation's largest airlines from nothing. Dressed neatly in his Sunday best, Marcus felt grown-up, confident, and ready for the adventure ahead. The airport buzzed with laughter, rolling suitcases, and the smell of fresh coffee. Everything seemed perfect until he reached the front of the line. There, one look from the flight attendant would turn his excitement into humiliation, and his dream trip into a nightmare that would expose something much deeper than a simple mistake. Marcus handed his ticket to the flight attendant with a smile that could melt anyone's heart. But instead of a welcoming nod, he got a glare. The woman frowned, looking from the ticket to his face, then back again, as if something didn't add up. "This can't be right," she muttered under her breath. The line behind him grew restless. Marcus shifted nervously, clutching his small backpack. "Ma'am, my mom said," he began, but she cut him off sharply. "Step aside," she ordered. "You're not supposed to be on this flight." The words hit him like a slap. He could feel dozens of eyes on him. A few whispered. Someone sighed impatiently. Marcus tried to explain, holding out the ticket again, his hands trembling. But she snatched it from him, and in one quick motion, tore it straight down the middle. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Next!" she barked, motioning for the next passenger. Marcus just stood there, shocked, frozen, humiliated. He wasn't sure if he should cry or shout. His heart pounded so hard he could hear it echo in his ears. He looked around for help, but most people avoided his gaze. One man shifted uncomfortably. Another shook his head but said nothing. Then, from the corner of his eye, Marcus noticed security guard approaching. The attendant pointed at him, whispering something Marcus couldn't hear. Within seconds, the guard was at his side, towering over him. "What's going on here?" the man asked. Before Marcus could speak, the attendant jumped in. He tried to board with a fake ticket, probably snuck in somehow. The guard's expression hardened. "Is that true, kid?" Marcus shook his head frantically. "No, sir. My dad, he owns—" "Enough!" the attendant interrupted. "We'll deal with this at the desk." Tears stung his eyes as he followed the guard away from the gate. Passengers stared, whispering behind their hands. His excitement was gone, replaced by confusion, anger, and shame. Every step felt heavier than the last. At the counter, Marcus tried again to explain. He told them his father's name, the airline's name, everything. But they didn't listen. The attendant laughed softly, shaking her head. "Sweetheart, I think we'd know if your father owned our airline." The guard crossed his arms. "We can't have people making stories up." Marcus felt his throat tighten. He reached for his phone to call his dad, but the signal was weak. The attendant rolled her eyes. "Let's get this over with," she said, motioning toward the exit. As they began to escort him away, a deep voice echoed from behind, calm but commanding. "Excuse me," it said. The crowd went silent. The footsteps grew closer, each one heavy with authority. Marcus turned, and for the first time, a spark of hope flickered in his chest. He knew that voice. The voice grew louder, cutting through the tension like thunder. "Is there a problem here?" Every head turned. The flight attendant froze, her confident posture suddenly faltering. Marcus looked up, and there he was, his father, tall, composed, and unmistakably in control. The CO, the man whose name was printed on every plane in that terminal. The security guard straightened immediately, his tone shifting. "Sir, we were just handling a situation with this boy." "This boy," his father interrupted, stepping closer, "is my son." Silence fell. The words echoed through the terminal. The attendant's face drained of color. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Passengers who had watched quietly moments ago now stared in shock, some whispering in disbelief. Marcus stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. His father's eyes softened as he looked at him, then hardened again as he turned to the attendant. "You tore up his ticket?" he asked quietly, his voice calm but dangerous. I thought she stammered. "You thought," he said, cutting her off, without checking, without listening, because of how he looks. The guard stepped back, eyes darting between them. The attendant's hands shook. "I didn't mean to, but you did," he said, in front of everyone. The crowd remained silent. Marcus could feel every heartbeat, every breath. The same people who looked away before were now watching justice unfold before their eyes. His father reached into his jacket and pulled out a sleek black card, sliding it across the counter. "Book him another seat," he said, "in first class. And make sure he's treated with the respect this airline should stand for." The attendant nodded quickly, unable to meet his gaze. As Marcus followed his father toward the gate, he glanced back one last time. The woman who had torn up his dream now stood trembling, the weight of her actions heavy in the air. She had no idea who she was dealing with, until it was too late. As the plane lifted off the runway, Marcus stared out the window, the city lights flickering beneath him like fading memories. His father sat beside him in silence, his hand resting gently on Marcus's shoulder. The anger had softened, but the wound remained, a wound deeper than a torn ticket. It wasn't just about embarrassment. It was about being judged before you even had a chance to speak. When they landed, his father issued a formal statement. The airline launched a full investigation, retraining every employee on dignity, empathy, and racial awareness. The story went viral within hours. News outlets covered it. People debated it. Some were outraged. Others said, it couldn't have been racism. But for Marcus, the truth was clear, because he had lived it. Days later, he walked through the same airport again, head held high. The same halls that had once made him feel small now echoed with whispers of change. And though he forgave, he never forgot. The pain had become his purpose. He promised himself that no child, no person should ever feel like he did that day. Because this wasn't just one story about a flight gone wrong. It was a mirror, showing us what still lingers beneath the surface of modern society. Racism doesn't always scream. Sometimes it smiles. Sometimes it hides behind policies, assumptions, or a moment's misunderstanding. Marcus learned that day that power doesn't come from wealth or status, but from standing up for what's right, even when it hurts. So the question remains, how many more torn tickets, broken hearts, and silent witnesses will it take before we finally learn to see beyond the color of someone's skin?